Alright, hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Dana. We're from the Innovation Consultancy at Kaiser Permanente.
And welcome to this installation of our Design-Led Innovation Training Series. And the module that we'll be covering today is called Imagine Possibilities. In the previous module, you might have already seen or done the one around understanding your environment and how to reframe problems. So this one is around getting creative, imagining different possibilities. So really thinking broad and diverging in the way that we think about our solutions to something, and then so that we can converge later.
So Mike mentioned diverging and converging. So this is the part of the process where we diverge and think big. There's been a lot of research done on this by Edward de Bono, if you're familiar with his work. And what he talks about is mental valleys. So we all kind of get into patterns of thinking. And if you think about an analogy of a mountain range, the rain kind of falls in random patterns on the ground. There's no rhyme or reason to it. And then that water starts to organize itself into small streams, and then those streams start to organize themselves into larger streams and rivers. And the same thing happens in our brains. We see things and we do things that are familiar to us, and we get into patterns, and there are very good reasons for this. But sometimes we need to diverge, and we need to think differently than we usually do, and we need to leap those mental valleys that we've gotten used to using.
Yeah. So a good example of why our brains have evolved this way is it's actually a survival mechanism. This is an evolutionary thing. Our brains have evolved to be very efficient to work in these kind of mental valleys and streams so that we can react very quickly. So, for example, if you were just waking up and there's a saber-toothed tiger sitting in front of you, the last thing you want your brain to be doing is to be brainstorming all the different ways that you should be thinking about to get away from the saber-toothed tiger. But instead, what you want to be doing, which is what our brains are trained to, have evolved to do, is to just respond very efficiently and for you to just react and run. So, but again, it's a good analogy to what Dana was saying earlier about, while this is very good in most of our day-to-day lives, when we're trying to think or do things differently, it makes it a very challenging thing to do.
Exactly. You
have to find active ways to do that.
Exactly. To summarize some of the practices that we introduced you to in previous modules, previously we talked about doing interviews, gaining empathy for the people that you're working with or you're trying to understand, to look at all of the elements of an environment to see how they are and try to understand why things are the way they are. And trying to see things that may be familiar to you, but seeing them from a different perspective. So seeing them like a child having vujade instead of deja vu. So seeing something that's familiar, but convincing yourself you've never seen it before. These are all the different practices that you would use to gather all the information that you would then synthesize and use to imagine new possibilities. So one way that you imagine possibilities is by brainstorming, and that's what we're going to focus on with this module.
Yeah. Cool. So about brainstorming, again, like Dana said, lots of different ways to imagine possibilities. Brainstorming is one of the ways, and the reason why we brainstorm is because the best way to have a good idea is actually to have lots of ideas. I didn't say this, Linus Pauling did it, and he was a really smart man.
So let's just get started right off the bat. We're all familiar with brainstorming. I'm sure we've all done it before. Some brainstorms are successful, some are not successful. We're going to give you some tools to help make your brainstorms successful. And but before we do that, let's just get into it and do an exercise. So we want you to brainstorm a very serious topic that we've come up with, which is how might we eat spaghetti without using our hands? We're going to give you 2 minutes to brainstorm solutions to this very serious problem. And we want you to, when you come up with an idea, write it on a Post-it, one idea per Post-it. Share your idea with your teams, tell them what it is, and then post that idea on the wall or on the board that you're using. You've got 2 minutes to do this brainstorm. Anything to add, Mike?
Nope.
All right, so have at it.